I'm sure you've seen the news that Marine Le Pen in France has been banned from running for public office. She's also been given 2 years house arrest and 2 years probation. Now, given she was the favourite to win the next French election, it's led many to believe this is a politically motivated decision. I believe the official reason she's been given this sentence is the embezzlement of public funds for a political party. Now, that may be true, it may not be true, I don't know, to be honest. But it does suggest a pattern of behaviour here when it comes to rightist or populist politicians in the West. The obvious example here is Donald Trump. He had to endure endless lawfare. Someone also tried to shoot him in the head, only just missed. An odd lack of security that day. And also there was the 2020 election, which let's just say was a little bit dodgy when Joe Biden won. Then there are other examples. Matteo Salvini in Italy, he's been prosecuted. The AfD, they're always on the edge of getting banned in Germany as well. Now, I think it's safe to say that two narratives are going to form here. On the left, liberal and mainstream side, I'm sure they'll say that this proves that all the populist politicians are effectively just criminals, and look, we've got the receipts. And on the right, if you can call it the right, most of those politicians are more populist than they are right. But still, they'll probably think that you can't make one mistake because the eye of Sauron is constantly on you. And I'm sure the more conspiracy theorist oriented will just think all of this is just controlled by the liberal regime. And even though I don't think any of the aforementioned figures could, quote, save the West, it does confirm what I've been speaking about a lot on this channel, and that's that the liberal regime has total control over the Western world. I think the liberal power structure has been able to fly beneath the radar for quite some time in the Western world. We've had our heads filled with the ideas of, quote, freedom and, quote, love from the 1960s, Thatcherite finance, and the colourblind society of the post-millennium. Of course, all of this has just been a smokescreen front, and now we're seeing the reality of liberalism. We're seeing that whether you like it or not, you're going to get it, and you're going to be happy about it. I imagine we're supposed to clap our hands with glee, even though despite going through a cost of living crisis at the moment, bills are going up again. Water, energy and council tax are all rising. And while this is happening, we spend billions subsidising legal and illegal mass immigration. But don't worry, the upside is it enriches our country, of course. Just don't challenge the liberal mainstream on that, otherwise you might lose your job and be banned from social media and put in jail if you're too edgy about it. This means the average couple now need 2 full-time jobs in order to make ends meet, and that also means the absolute travesty of having to send your babies off to nursery exactly the time when they need the mother. Not to mention nurseries are disgustingly expensive for a very mediocre service in my experience. You know, I must be one of those toxic, evil, far-right white male bigots who values the structure of the family and the stable rearing of children over GDP and the market. Disgusting populist scum. I mean, come on, I need to get with the liberal programme, right? Like this nursery that kicked out a toddler recently for being, quote, transphobic and homophobic. If I've learnt anything from The Guardian and the BBC, I'd wager that that toddler was white, bloody white male toddler bigot. Good riddance. Oh, and after all, it turns out the multicultural utopian dream isn't working out so well. Shock horror, who could have predicted that? It turns out a new survey of British Muslims asking how they identify first and foremost states that 71% identify as Muslim and 27% as British/English. Now, some right-wing commenters get their knickers in a twist about this, but personally I think, what did we expect? Of course they're going to side with Islam first. They wouldn't be very good Muslims if they didn't. Not to mention, I kind of respect it in a way. At least they're holding on to their tradition in a time when liberalism eats everything alive and then tries to recreate it in its own image, just as has happened with Christianity. But as I've said many times on the channel, I do think Islam is in trouble. One, because of the decadence in the Middle East and the integration into the globalist market. And secondly, because they're playing footsie with the woke intersectional types in the West. Yes, on the surface it looks good for them because they get to play the victim and get special privileges, but those people will destroy your religion from the inside out with intersectionality. Mark my words. Personally, I see the switch from the soft and subtle liberal power structure to the obvious, hardline and enforced one as a good sign for the Western world. After all, it means that the liberal power structure is starting to crumble and therefore having to impose itself on the populace. And as many point out under my videos, correctly I might add, elections are not going to fix this. They can't fix this. It's an illusion of the last century that they can. The whole system is now controlled by liberalism. The politicians are simply managing micromanagers, and to be blunt, democracy is a bit of a sham. And this is also why I think, quote, fighting back against the system is completely futile. It's exactly what the liberal regime wants. They can pick out some psychopath who yells about black folks or punch a Chinese guy and say, look at these maniacs, aren't they horrible and evil and racist? And also, the harsh truth is, even without the liberal system, our people have largely been gutted out. We don't really have a tradition anymore. Most people are more interested in earning as much money as they can for themselves, bedding women, and Premier League football. Notions of community, tradition, duty, nation and God, these things are of yesteryear. They've been forgotten, and not to mention, if you do try and reawaken them here and now, you'll be seen as some evil far-right fascist maniac by the leagues of young folks who've been brainwashed by the university system, especially the young women. Yet, of course, such things are vital for any healthy civilization to grow and thrive. You need a shared mythos, a shared history, a shared morality which allows you to step into the future and pursue the same destiny. And if you do want to challenge that ancient dynamic, you need a popular mandate, and most importantly, you need great figures of amazing talent and dexterity, spiritual masters, excellent philosophers, great politicians to navigate such a tricky and complex thing. But have you ever noticed that the powers that be never actually promote that? That's because our multicultural utopian brave new world isn't actually about traditions uniting and perennialism. What it's about is the market having total control over everybody, blended with left-wing ideology which is essentially just anti-Western by its very nature and wants to rip it apart. Now, this forms the basis of globalism, and we can't escape it at this period in time, but we can watch it collapse. Everything worldly collapses. The only thing that doesn't collapse is the eternity of the Great Spirit, and the tradition is the bridge from the Spirit to the world. So in essence, it's not time to be downhearted, but a time to rejoice, because we're going to see the reawakening of the tradition in the embers of liberalism. So don't worry about the judgment of the world. As Christ said, if the world hates you, remember that it hated me first, because he spoke to something beyond the physical world. Now, any reawakening is always bumpy, whether that's individual or collective, but we are at a time where we can realize that the answers are not in the material world of money, sex and power, that there is something beyond that, a spirit which gave birth to Western civilization in the first place. Simply put, that will be the realigning with the tradition. We don't know exactly what that will look like yet, but it begins with the spiritual transformation of ourselves, ridding ourselves of anger, of fear, of this negativity that so many have towards the modern world, and realizing it's an opportunity for great rebirth and great hope. This is why I started the new channel, Tradition and Transformation, which is based on personal and spiritual evolution. You can check that out down below. You can also join the Substack, where you can get exclusive content and connect with me personally. On top of that, do let me know your thoughts about all of this, and do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.